Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alex Paul from InvestorStream, and I'll be your host today. Firstly, can I just say what a great turnout it is today. Thank you all for joining us. As you all know, today we have AnteoTech CEO Derek Thomson, who'll be providing an update on the company's operations, obviously following this morning's announcement that AnteoTech has submitted documentation with the TGA to commence the registration process of the EuGeni Reader platform and SARS-CoV-2 antigen rapid diagnostic test in the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods. Now, following the presentation, Derek will be available to address any questions you may have. Many of you have already taken the opportunity to submit questions ahead of the webinar, which is greatly appreciated. We've been inundated with questions, so we'll attempt to get through as many as time permits. Please feel free to continue sending in your questions via the chat platform, in the question pane, in the GoToWebinar control panel. You can also email them to me at alex@investorsstream.com.au. You can also download a copy of the TGA announcement by navigating to the handouts pane in the control panel. The presentation will be up live on the ASX shortly. Finally, a copy of the webinar will be available on AnteoTech's website and social media platforms immediately following the webinar in the next hour or so following the webinar. But for now, I'd like to throw it over to Derek, who's going to kick things off for us. Derek, the floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Alex. Well, as the global pandemic conditions continue, we are seeing a shift away from laboratory-based testing processes towards point-of-care testing processes around the world. At the same time, the demand for clean energy driven by global warming forces has seen the need for lithium-ion battery and other storage methods to increase worldwide. We are operating in two markets that are growing very, very rapidly. Our objective has been to pivot towards these opportunities, and this has required us to focus all our capability to the establishment of a business that sustains long-term shareholder value. And that brings us into a very exciting period right now within our company as we transform from R&D organisation to product organisation, capable of providing enterprise-grade tools for the markets that we serve. As we build a new team committed to establishing a reputation for quality end-user products, and as we establish our market presence with the clinical community and the lithium-ion battery community to provide channels to grow our business and drive shareholder value into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you today. Alex tells me that we have broken all records with the volume of attendance on this platform, so I really appreciate your time with us today. He also tells me that we have a huge volume of questions, so I can see that we're going to have a very good session, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we get started, to the business of the day. We have announced this morning that we have been successful in achieving our ISO 13485 certification upgrade, and we have submitted documents to the TGA for approval of the EuGeni platform and the SARS-CoV-2 test. This is a significant milestone for the company, and I congratulate the entire organisation who put in all their effort to get to this milestone. It's a significant moment for us, and we hope the TGA will expedite our process and get us through that process very quickly so that we can get on and make some sales in Australia. So that's a good news story for us, and we're all very proud of it. Alex, I think we can start the presentation now. So if you want to flick over to some slides, we'll go to the usual opening slide. And of course, this is our disclaimer slide. And as you read this probably later on, it is an indication that this presentation is an update only and is not intended to be any recommendation for buying or selling of the AnteoTech stock. Thanks, Alex. We're going to start with the life science area. All right, so this is our leverage model for the EuGeni platform, which obviously we are focusing on at the moment and which is driving the growth of the company. In the center of that round circle is our business model or our vision for the EuGeni platform, and it is dominated by the notion that it is one platform for multiple tests. And multiple tests gives us the opportunity to leverage multiple revenue streams for each test off the single reader platform. Now, this model is a little bit different to other models that are in the marketplace for rapid diagnostic testing. Many of our competitors have put single tests into the market for SARS-CoV-2 as an example, and that creates a relationship with the customer for that single test. When the pandemic is over and the need for that particular test dissipates, those players will lose their relationship or dissipate their relationship with the customer. Our objective is to put a platform play into the market so that we maintain our relationship with the customer and provide a suite of tests that they can use on the EuGeni platform, and that will sustain our position in the marketplace and drive multiple revenue streams. This is a proven successful model. It has been completed by some very large organisations in the marketplace, including the likes of Quidel and Abbott, and even our friends at Loom have a platform play as well for the home market, and we will be emulating that type of model to drive long-term shareholder value from the EuGeni platform for many years to come. To do that, we have to build an enterprise-grade organisation to deliver that platform, and I want to go through the elements of that now just really briefly to give you an update of where we're at. Firstly, with our development capability, all the investment that we have made since the raise in May has primarily been put into increasing the team so that we can build a volume of tests or a suite of tests onto the EuGeni platform. So we have invested in new scientists in the lateral flow area, several people in the production area, and several people in the quality area that are bolstering our team to build those tests. We are already getting very strong development results coming from that process, which I'll detail in a slide a little bit later on. The second area is in the marketing and sales, and I want to call out to all our long-term shareholders who have provided some very good guidance to us over the recent months around our marketing and sales efforts. We are completely aligned to your comments and your guidance, and we are putting things in place now that we'd always planned to do, but are aligned to your suggestions. What we have at the moment is a sales team that is spread across the globe. We have people working for us in sales in Brisbane. We've also got some people operating very effectively in Europe and in Asia. And we've appointed 2 PR firms, or we've been working with 2 PR firms over a number of months now, 6 to 12 months, one here in Australia and another one that covers the US and the European markets. And about a year ago, we appointed a creative agency who have been working with us on several fronts, but obviously in the EuGeni platform as well. Our next appointment will be a key marketing lead, a marketing leader for the organisation. That process is underway. Several very strong candidates have emerged, and we will be making that appointment very, very soon. And we'll be making announcements about that person and that role in the coming weeks or months. The third area that I'd like to update you on is in the AnteoTech and European area. This, again, just to give you an update, is the differentiating technical position that we hold for the EuGeni platform. And we've made a commercial decision not to sell AnteoTech to any other European player. And we've continued to use that detection platform for the tests that we are building now. And I'll detail this a little bit later, but the COVID-19 flu A, flu B test using this detection system has had some extremely encouraging results. And we've also started working on our sepsis bank of tests, and we've got some very good results there as well. Moving up to the top right-hand corner now, the global distribution network. If you've been following the company, we've been announcing these distributors as they've been signed. We've got 6 distributors on board now, covering about 13 territories. And we continue that rollout of distributors, especially in the European market. But we've also started our work for the US market entry. And I'll detail some elements of that in a later slide. Moving a bit further down, we have been working on our reader innovation. And for those who have followed the company in the past, we have announced that we will make new revenue streams from opening up different segments of the point of care market using new readers. And we have had a series of new readers that we have been testing with our existing tests, the SARS-CoV-2 test and the multiplex test, and we are getting some very surprising and good results out of that process. These are OEM readers that are readily available to us. There's no development requirement, and we're getting some fantastic results out of that process. And finally, by way of headline update, our global manufacturing strategy, which was announced earlier in the year, predicated on the notion that we start manufacturing strips in Brisbane. I can report, if you've been following the company, we have reported that we have ordered the kinematic machines from the US, and they will be delivered towards the end of the year, early next year, for our facility to start its operations. And we are actually expanding the facilities here in Brisbane to accommodate those processes as well. In addition, we see that the global manufacturing capability is actually freed up a little bit, and we're looking at new opportunities in Asia and Europe and here in Australia to do cassette manufacturing or cassette assembly, and that will further bolster our volume of tests that we'll be able to put into the market. So that is the headline updates on where we are with the EuGeni platform. There's a little bit of detail in the pursuing slides, so we might move on to the next one. Thanks, Alex. All right, so we've made some significant progress in the last 18 months, and some of the things that we've learned reflect on our ability to continue the transformation process that we've got underway into the next period. I want to draw your attention to a couple of areas. Firstly, in the development area, we were able to accelerate the timelines for the production of our platform play on the EuGeni platform, plus the SARS-CoV-2 test, simply because we used our own technology, our AnteoTech technology, and our very deep conjugation expertise that we have within the organisation. Now, these two things combined to enable us to do the development work around the test, and is continuing for the other tests in a very, very quick time frame. Other players in the market can take 3 or 4 times longer to do their tests than what we've proven to be able to do with our tests. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we've got a very strong detection system using AnteoBind and europium, and so that development work is putting us in quite a good competitive advantage. In terms of the clinical study work, we did go to Vidril, the Doherty Institute, to do our clinical study work, and if you've been following the company, you would have seen those results. We've done a lot more clinical work, which I'll detail in a minute. Since that time, we've developed a competency and put new people, new resources on our staff to handle our clinical work, and those processes have accelerated as well and been quite successful. In terms of selecting partners, I've reported this before, but the one partner that was the best success for us was to choose Operon as our manufacturing partner in Spain, and we continue to work closely with that organisation to produce our tests, and that has accelerated our processes as well. We continue to work with Operon, and we will continue to work with Operon to produce the pursuing tests as well, and that relationship is very, very strong. We have poured all our efforts to date, or the majority of our efforts to date, on the commercial side into distribution setup, and our ability to sell from the AnteoTech perspective is predicated on our success in signing distributors, and we have very good success in signing up distributors currently, and we will continue that process. The notion that we used distributors is predicated on the point of view of the market. There are literally tens of thousands of different opportunities for us to sell the EuGeni product into the clinical market, so we must use distributors. We could never hope to do it ourselves, and so the distribution selling process is very important to us, and to date we've been very successful. And finally, on the regulatory side, we're in many regulatory processes at the moment across the world to get our product registered in various countries. What has happened is that the regulatory requirements in many countries have tightened, and we've had to do extra work around those regulatory processes to make sure that we get registered. But we've bolstered the team around that, and of course the most recent one is the TGA, which we're focusing on to get through very, very quickly. The message that I think we reflect on up to the point that we are at the moment is that our competitors and the benchmark for production of a platform and a test such as the SARS-CoV-2 test is about 6 years and $34 million. And certainly the competitors that we have in the marketplace, such as Quidel and Abbott, have spent that sort of money and spent that sort of time to produce their platforms up until this point. We have done that entire process in 18 months with a very small team and a mere fraction of that capital. And so we see that we've been able to harness all and leverage all the capability that makes a difference to bring this platform to market as quickly as we possibly can. And we're very proud to say that we are right now on the precipice of market entry and success in that process. All right, Alex, we'll move on to the next one. Thanks. And so I've read many reports and many indications about what EuGeni will mean in the marketplace and how it will operate. So, some of the things that we've experienced are a contra to some of the things that you may read. For example, being a bit later into the market and missing a lot of contracts and missing the market is not what we experience. The clinical market, our experience of the clinical market has been that the customer base will buy on a very short-term basis. They'll buy a batch of tests and they'll use that test and experience what it can deliver. And if something better comes along, they usually move to that something better. So the contracts and the buying processes in the screening market and the clinical market are really quite short-term. And that was the position that we understood going into the development of our test and our platform. And we spent the extra time to make sure that we could make a difference in the marketplace. And so the EuGeni platform has several differences that put us in a better position than a lot of our competitors. The first one is performance. We are very highly performing in the marketplace. Our sensitivity numbers, if you've been following the company, are well known by now. Sensitivity at 97.3% and specificity at 99.6%, which came out of the Doherty trials. We've done several other trials since that time, and those sensitivity numbers and specificity numbers have been duplicated. So we have a very high performance test that makes a difference in the marketplace. That together with speed to result, it's a high performing test, and it is a 15-minute test, literally 1 minute in the reader. So the reader is able to push through 60 tests per hour, which makes it a very strong proposition as opposed to visual tests, which need interpretation and can be misread. The reader takes that off the table and it does it very quickly. A key differentiator for our product is the reading window. Most of the visual tests that are on the market now have a 5 to 10 minute reading window, and if you don't read that result within that time frame, you have to redo the test. And if you look at the literature around what's happening in screening scenarios with the reader-based test, a lot of the screening processes require repeat testing because the test was not read within the reading window. Our test has been engineered in a specific way that allows 2 hours reading time after incubation. And despite the fact that you might think that the 2 hours would extend the time of a screening process, it actually enables efficient batching of the process, and that speeds up mass screening processes. So you don't have to retest the patients that are missed in the reading window because you have 2 hours and you can batch them up and all the cassettes up and push through many cassettes through the readers. A key differentiator for us is our data capability. The platform itself is able to record data, record the result, match it to the patient information, and that information can be transported onto any other system. It has a complete ubiquity across systems, and it is in a format that is very easy to use. It's a simple touchscreen navigation system, and it has a really simple user interface. And so it's a very flexible system that can harness data, and that data can be used in a number of different scenarios. It is also completely connected via LAN or Wi-Fi, so it can be set up in a hospital or in the field to connect to a system, and that data can be transported very quickly. And the final differentiator for us, the most significant of which, is our suite of tests. We obviously have the COVID-19 antigen test out now, and we are following with the COVID-19 flu A, flu B the sepsis family of tests, and we have a complete opportunity to build bacterial, viral, infectious tests in the future, which provides us with a big opportunity to produce a suite of tests on this platform, as I say, that will drive revenues into the future and drive further shareholder value. Okay, Alex, next slide, please. All right. So this slide articulates, again, our immediate strategy for the EuGeni platform. Our strategy is to get as many readers into the global market as we can, as quickly as we possibly can. So we're focusing, obviously, where we have regulatory approvals in Europe, but we're also focusing our business development efforts in many other parts of the world. We have people working for us in India, and we see India as a key market for us going forward, and we will drive business development processes and eventual placement of EuGeni Readers and distribution activity in that country. We've got Biomed and others working in Asia for us. We are starting to have conversations in South America as well, and in Africa. But importantly, we are starting to focus on the US market as well. So all this activity will drive readers into the marketplace, and we will obviously put the COVID-19 test onto that reader base as our initial test, and that will drive a revenue stream. But as the new tests come through, we will drive the new tests onto those readers as well. We will get a multiple in the revenue stream, and as we bring new tests into the pipeline, we'll get a multiple again. So currently, the market for lateral flow tests, there's many different predictions of where that market will go. The one that you see on the screen now in 2020 was about 7 billion, 2026, 11.5 billion. We're seeing incredible analysis at the moment due to the pandemic that those numbers have doubled. And certainly some of our competitors are showing that their revenues have taken a fairly giant leap because of the pandemic, and they're starting to get sustained. And so the marketplace that we are entering at the moment, our strategy to do it should see us with a healthy pipeline of revenue over the coming years, months and years, to grow our shareholder value. Next slide, thank you. Alex. So where are we on that journey right now in terms of rolling out the EuGeni platform? You would have seen from our announcements that we've signed 6 or 7 distributors covering 14 territories. We've got about 13 more in the pipeline. Not all of those will sign immediately, but we're confident that we'll sign those over time. And Europe obviously was our originating key marketplace for entry, and we're doing very well there. And we will see revenues coming out of the European market in increased form in the very near future. The key area that we are focusing on now, or starting to focus on now, is our US market entry, and that's planned for 2022. So what we've done there initially is two initiatives. One of them is to appoint a US market entry marketing consulting firm. We've appointed those folk this week. Now, this is a key strategic move for us. The firm that we have chosen have members that previously were advisors to Illum in their market entry process, and of course they were very successful. So that same team is going to be working with us to plan out our market entry for the US market for 2022. In addition to that, we are in discussions about our clinical requirements for FDA approvals, and we are discussing with a key research organisation processes that we need to go on the clinical side for the COVID-19 test to take advantage of the EUA applications that are still available in the US for the SARS-CoV-2 test, and also the COVID-19 flu A, flu B test for FDA approval in the US, and that process is underway as well. All right, I think we're on to the next one. Thanks, Alex. In terms of our manufacturing strategy, again, for those who've been following the company, you would be aware that we've created our key relationship with Operon, who are in Spain, accessing the European markets, doing very well for us. The quality of their product is very good, and the quality of their manufacturing process is very good. So we're very happy with them. They are expanding their facilities. They will move into new facilities in 2023, which will triple their capacity. At the moment, they're at about 8 million cassettes per annum. They have upped that a little bit with some automation, and so they are envisaging high volumes in the short term. And as I mentioned, in 2023, they will move into a new facility that will more than triple their capability. They have strip manufacturing capability of about an additional 12 million cassettes. 12 million strips, so that they can produce, just on the reel-to-reel, about 12 million additional every year, which also, if we ask them to do it, will add to our capability. And in addition to that, we, as I mentioned, are installing our own reel-to-reel machines and laminator here locally in Brisbane, and that will enable us to have a total of about 32 million strips produced per annum, which at this stage we think is enough for the SARS-CoV-2 test, at least going forward. We will be looking for cassette assembly capability. We're in advanced discussions to do that locally here in Australia, and we will be making announcements about cassette assembly arrangements here in Australia. And we are starting that journey in Asia as well, and we will be bringing on new cassette assembly in Asia to bolster our capability and put that cassette assembly process closer to the markets that we serve. So those processes are underway, and we will make further announcements on our manufacturing strategy as those arrangements come to fruition. Next one, thanks, Alex. Okay, this is an update on our use case. You may recall in previous announcements that we've been talking about how we're going to make our SARS-CoV-2 test and probably subsequent tests easier and more comfortable for the patients to be administered with. And we've done a lot of work. We've announced in the past that we've done a lot of trial work, which started in the UK and moved to Spain. And then we've done 2 or 3 trials in India, and we've got further trials in India going on at the moment. And we're about to start a brand new trial here in Australia as well, in Sydney, given the high positive rate that's in New South Wales. So we've collected all that data up and made some decisions on how we're going to present our use case for the COVID-19 test going forward, based on what we learned. So I'll walk you through what we have learned on this slide. Firstly, on the left-hand side is a depiction of the work that we did in development. And what we did in development was we took spit samples or saliva spit samples that were actual spit samples. They're actually donated to the process by a lot of the staff. And we used that spit sampling process to do our development work. Now, in doing that development work, we spiked those samples with recombinant or inactivated SARS-CoV-2 antigen at various viral loads that we typically would see in a commensurate nasopharyngeal sample. So the loads typically that we spiked the saliva with was commensurate with what we would expect to see from patients from a nasopharyngeal type sample as well. And as you can see from that graph, the results of that development process, which by the way required us to overcome the viscosity issues of using saliva versus nasopharyngeal, which are very difficult to overcome, but we did it by re-engineering the lysis buffer. The results that we got were very, very positive. The correlation to nasopharyngeal from saliva was very tight, and the sensitivity process, or the sensitivity results that we got from that development process were very, very high. And so we were able to prove that we could overcome the viscosity issues of using saliva and detect the antigen in saliva at reasonable viral load levels. Then we put that entire process into the clinical trials that I mentioned, 4 or 5 of them, 3 of them in India, which are still going. Another one, as I mentioned, about to start in Sydney. Now, the results that we got were a little bit different. From the spit saliva perspective, what we found was that in terms of relative viral load, when you compare to nasal pharyngeal, from the patients with high CT or high viral load from nasal pharyngeal, they actually had a much lower viral load from their spit sample. So when we took a nasal sample from the patient, we got a reasonable viral load, but from that same patient, we got a different viral load, and that viral load tended to be lower. In addition to that, we got inconsistency or correlation differences between patients. So for example, when we took a nasopharyngeal sample from a patient that had a high viral load, some patients also had a high viral load in their spit sample, and some patients had a very low viral load from their spit sample. Some patients had none, no viral load whatsoever. So not only did we see a decrease in the viral load from the spit sampling process, but we also saw a spreading of the correlation of those results. And this has meant that our results that we get from spit sampling across the board have been inconsistent with nasopharyngeal. So we faced with a decision point around that, whether we take on spit saliva as a sampling technique and sacrifice some performance because we're getting a spread of correlation, or do we try some other things? What we decided to do was to try some other things. And we've done further testing around different harvest techniques. And those harvest techniques include mid-turbinate nasal, which is a swab in the nose, not as far into the nose as nasal pharyngeal, far more comfortable, and nasal anterior, which is right at the front of the nose, much more comfortable than nasal pharyngeal, and oropharyngeal, which is at the back of the throat, behind the teeth, with a swab as well. And we've done testing on those sampling techniques and got much better results, much more consistency in terms of the alignment of the viral load compared to nasal pharyngeal, and also a lot more correlation in the results. And so we have decided that we're going to move towards those areas, those three techniques, as the next harvesting methods that we put out with our IFU, with our tests, and make sure that we can offer a test to the market that offers comfort for the patient, but also consistency of performance in the test as well. And commercially, this is a very important thing for us to do. If we were to try to go for spit saliva straight away and not get the performance that we've been talking about, it would probably hurt our reputation and hurt our commercial prospects. We're not giving spit saliva away completely. We know there are some techniques in the market, some technologies that will enable us to test and perhaps bring spit saliva back to our use case at a later date, but that will require some re-engineering of the test. And for the moment, we're going to put that to one side and go with these other three. And we are working towards those three now, as I mentioned, as a finalisation of the trials in India and a focus point for the trials that we're about to do in Sydney. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Thanks, Alex. And so this is a little bit of an update on our COVID-19 flu A, flu B multiplex test. Now, since the last update, the US CDC has moved towards or encouraged the production of these types of tests for the Northern Hemisphere, or for the US market in particular. And that's fortuitous for us because we were already going down that path anyway. And for those of you who have been following the company for a while, we've had this test in proof of concept or a concept level for a little bit of time now. We've advanced the development of it, obviously, to a point where we're bringing it out as our next test. So the prototype process is on track. We're about to finalise the prototype process, bring it through to design freeze in the next little while, and based on the results that we're currently getting, which are very good. We're recording very strong signal to blank ratios, which is important in a 4-line test. It is a 4-line test, as you can see there, with control line, COVID line, and 2 lines, both one for flu A, flu B. And so getting that signal to blank ratio to work effectively is a very difficult thing to achieve, and we're getting good results on that. In addition, the other important aspect of test development for these multiplex tests is you get no cross-reactivity between the different conditions, and we're getting no cross-reactivity at all between these conditions on the line. So that's a very good result for us as well. As I mentioned, the discussions that are underway for clinical trials in the US. We're seeking the prevalence of flu in that market. We believe that we will probably get there as the Northern Hemisphere winter comes on, and that will enable us to do a clinical trial for flu and COVID-19. Obviously, that's a far easier, far more prevalent condition at the moment, so clinical trials for that are relatively easy. And we are working on those processes so that we can do the clinical trials in the US as quickly as we possibly can. In the meantime, we've purchased some of our competitors' products, and we've been testing our results against the competitors' products, and we can report that our results are very strong. That the leading brands, the reader-based brands that currently have flu A, flu B, COVID-19 multiplex tests in the market, our test is performing as good, if not better, than those tests that are already in the market. So we've got a very strong sense that we've got a good test about to go into design freeze. Right, thank you, Alex. The next one is the sepsis family of tests, and we've got a few announcements here. Oop. Yeah, you want to advance on to the sepsis one now? Thanks, Alex. Thank you. So again, those who have been following the company for quite some time would know that we announced 6 months to a year ago that we would produce a multiplex test, a tripleplex multiplex test for the condition of sepsis, a very advanced test, quantitative test that would give clinicians a definitive result around the onset of sepsis. And that is still our ambition to do that. And we originally announced by the end of 2022 that we would complete that process. What that meant was there was a delay of almost a year in bringing any revenues out of the sepsis family if we were to continue down that path. So we've decided actually to split the biomarkers apart and introduce them first as individual tests. And the first test that we're producing right now is the interleukin-6 or IL-6 test, and that process is underway, and we've got very good results from that. We'll have that ready for a clinical study towards the end of this year and bring that out early next year as our first test in the sepsis family of tests. This has the effect, of course, of advancing the revenue opportunities, the revenue streams from the sepsis family by almost a year, and so that will again, drive further value into the EuGeni platform. The second one that we have underway as well is procalcitonin, and that's a PCR test, which again, we're getting very good results from now. That is in development with the new team that we've employed. The results are very, very strong, and we'll bring that through in the same time frame. The next test after that will be a combination of those two. It'll be a multiplex test, and we'll combine the two together, bring it out as a multiplex test a little bit later in the year. And again, that multiplex will be designed to give the clinicians a tool to assess quantitatively those two biomarkers on a single test. And then finally, we'll do the multiplex test after that and bring the triple play multiplex test with 3 biomarkers onto the market later in the year as well. So the program for sepsis is well underway. We have advanced the potential revenue opportunity by bringing a single test to the market early, a single couple of tests to the market early, and that should again enable us to advance our revenue streams and give the EuGeni platform more relevance in line with our strategy. All right, thank you, Alex. We'll move on to the energy side then. Thank you. You want to advance one more? Okay, a bit of an update on the energy side. Again, those people that have been following the company would know that we've enabled a current focus around Antiox. Now, Antiox is the binder additive that we've been producing that produces a cross-linking effect that increases the electrochemical performance of the lithium-ion battery. And we focused on this process as a commercial opportunity to bring Antiox to the market as quickly as we possibly can. And two collaborators of interest, one a binder material manufacturer, collaborator 8, and an active material manufacturer, collaborator 2, took great interest in Antiox, combined with their products as an opportunity to bring that to market. Now, the way we did that was we actually built a silicon anode reference design. We built a mini anode, if you like, or a reference design anode to demonstrate the capability of Antiox, but also the capability of the collaborators' products as well. And that was the process that we went through. On the next slide, Alex, you can see an overview of exactly what sort of results that we are getting. And again, those who have been following the company have seen these types of results before, but we are seeing Antiox lifting the cycle life of the anode quite significantly. Over the 200 to 250 range, where we're seeing 50 extra cycles, or 26% more cycles come out at the 70% capacity retention mark, which is quite significant in the marketplace. There's not many additives or elements to an anode that can achieve this type of result. And so not only did were we able to work with our collaborators well and get these type of results, but as we reported in the past, those collaborators got so enthusiastic about it that they wanted to take it to their customers. And this provided us with a clear commercialization pathway for Antiox. And on the next slide, Alex, we can depict what's going on in that process. So over recent weeks and months, we've been doing several demonstrations and several presentations to key organisations within the lithium-ion battery market. Now, the first ones were with collaborator 8. They're a binder manufacturer. Again, we used the silicon anode reference design, so we built a small anode, tested it using these products, went into a presentation mode to show them the results. The first one we did was a very prominent organisation in Northern Asia, high-power output battery manufacturer. The presentation went very well with them. They've asked us to go into a trial with them using Antiox and to produce, help them produce the similar results out of their production cycle using Antiox. So we're underway with that now. But in addition to that, they've got quite interested in understanding how we could harness the anode reference design that we showed them the results on to produce a full anode. And so we're in discussions with them around how we might be able to do that with them and bring that to market as well. So that was a great result. This particular client of collaborator 8 has a vast network in Northern Asia, and they're also talking to us about how that network can be leveraged to bring Antiox further to their relationships and their other battery relationships. The second area was with collaborator 2. They're an active material manufacturer, and we combined with them, and again we used the same silicone anode reference design. And this time we went directly to the EV vehicle manufacturers, and these are prominent organisations, very prominent organisations, key vehicle manufacturers that are moving into electric vehicles and therefore bolstering their capability around the use of lithium-ion batteries. Again, very impressive or very impressed feedback around the results that we're getting using the silicone reference design. 2 of them we're entering trials with now, and they will be using Antiox to see if they can combine it in their processes to build their batteries. But again, they've asked us to investigate the possibility of using the reference design as a standalone anode that they can use in their products. So this is very encouraging, a very encouraging development. We've embarked on that process now. We are working very, very closely with collaborator 2 about not only exploiting Antiox with their customer, but also around the silicone anode reference design and exploiting that as well. In the future, very near future, we've got several other battery manufacturers that we are going to present to. As a matter of fact, they start next week, and we expect the same sort of result. At the end of the day, we've got Antiox into the market, well known for some key lithium-ion battery manufacturers. We are fully underway with that process now. We're starting to get traction in the market. We see a very bright future for the commercialization process, which we're very, very excited about. All right, that's the last slide, I think, Alex. So I believe there's...
Thanks, Derek. So certainly very, very informative, very thorough. So thanks very much for taking the time. As you mentioned, we do have a lot of questions. We will try to get through as many questions as time permits, but given that we have been inundated, as you mentioned at the top, it won't be possible to get through every single one. We'll try and get through as many as we can. The first question, Derek, is with regard to the many RAT distribution agreements, do they have a minimum order or sales clause that the distributor will commit to sell and therefore guarantee revenue for AnteoTech? And if so, when do they kick in and will they be announced?
Yeah, look, I think the question is, how do we leverage? The question is around how do we leverage the distributor to perform? And certainly minimum order requirements is one tool, but we've used a number of tools to do that. We've signed distribution agreements for the SARS-CoV-2 test only at this point, and we've given no guarantee that the same distributor will get the subsequent tests. And so, the relationship is predicated on the notion that they see the value in the suite of tests, but they must be able to perform with the tests that we've given them, and that's underwritten in all the agreements that we put in place to date. Some of the markets that we're entering into and the relationship that we're carrying out with the distributors have been very, very careful negotiations, and the minimum order requirements has tended to stall some of those conversations. So we have backed off a little bit to enable the negotiation to flow and make sure that we get the COVID-19 test and the EuGeni platform into that market as quickly as we possibly can. But we've always done that on the notion that we write the agreement that we can pull out at any stage. If we don't get performance out of the distributor or they don't perform, we can swap immediately. And we've written the contracts that way to protect our position. So the answer to the question is we've got many tools for making the distributor performance work. One of them is minimum order quantities. Those minimum order quantities aren't prevalent in every single distributor contract. They are in some, but the other tools that we have at play enable us to leverage and make sure that those distributors perform the way we want them to.
How many test kits have you produced thus far?
We're in lead-up production work, development, etc., plus the inventories that we're building up. I've forgotten the numbers, but it's in the hundreds of thousands of tests. So we're well on the way. We've got inventories at Operon to produce those tests into the millions. So we've triggered those. We've triggered the production processes in August and September, and we're building up those inventories now. And so, we're very confident the production process and the inventory raw materials that we have in place will stand us in good stead for this initial period.
Of the tens of thousands of opportunities to sell EuGeni, what are the highest priority for you?
Well, a couple of areas. The clinical market actually is a very interesting market because it has a higher margin. What we're seeing in the screening market is, many tests that have been produced by visual test makers that are at the cheaper end of the market, going after these large volume screening opportunities, and that tends to drive the price of the screening opportunities lower, especially where it's a government related tender. So the government-related tenders are really a race to the bottom as far as I can see in many parts of the world, and they're the ones we're starting to stray away from. What we are seeing is a lot of private industry screening opportunities. These are better for us. They're more fine-tuned, more requirement for data, which comes into our differentiation zone quite well, and we're starting to focus on those from the screening opportunity. On the clinical side, we're seeing huge opportunities globally to get the product into the hospitals, into the laboratories, and into the doctors' hands. And that's really been predicated on the notion that they see a suite of tests coming through, and again, that will stand us in good stead for the platform for long-term revenues.
So what marketing support is AnteoTech providing its distributors to assist the sales process?
So we provide all the distributors a full training program up front, not only for their clinical people, but for their sales people. So we've done that with every single distributor. It's a half-day process. We get the technical team in and we give them a demonstration of how the product is utilized and how it works. It's very detailed in terms of the software. So we do that as an upfront process. And then we assign a person to them. We've got 1 or 2 people that are assigned a relationship responsibility for that particular distributor. And obviously we're growing that team and we'll grow that team as the distributor base builds over time. And we have a full suite of marketing material provided to the distributor, both in written form, leaflet form and video form. And we go through all those processes and the selling techniques around the marketing material with them. And then we work with them to do marketing in their local markets. Now we have said, and we've started to support local markets directly. For example, in France, we've done a lot of publications in that country and around Europe that are country-based. We've helped distributors to attend different conferences. We've written papers for them, etc. So it is a very deep relationship that we have with the distributors, and it is a full marketing support for their efforts.
Can you just provide a specific update on Antio's current position with the Serum Institute of India, IMRA, and GeneDx?
Well, Serum Institute of India have been using our AnteoBind product. They're not using EuGeni, they're using AnteoBind products to produce assays which test or QC test the vaccines that they produce. Serum Institute of India have actually become our #1 customer for AnteoBind in the last year, and we're building a strong relationship with them. We've actually appointed someone in India to represent the company, and that person is about to embark on an engagement with Serum Institute of India as well for the AnteoBind product. We believe that we can do a lot more for the Serum Institute of India, not only in supplying AnteoBind, but helping them to build assays. And certainly we've had those discussions with them in the past, and we believe that's the direction that the relationship will head. If we can help them to build assays using our own competency, which is, as I mentioned, is very strong, we'll deepen that relationship and we'll pull more services revenue through from them and more AnteoBind revenue through from them. So that's where we want to go. IMRA, we're still working with those guys. That's a good relationship that we have. The product that we have out in the market is starting to get some traction. We've talked to them about some new products around the magnetic particle range, and those conversations are still underway. The gold particle coated, AnteoBind coated gold particle that we have is in the market now, and that's starting to get some traction. And so that's a very good relationship, which we attend to weekly with IMRA. And on the genetics front, that relationship has gone a little bit slower recently, I've got to say. We did talk to them about EuGeni and entering the Chinese market with EuGeni. We decided not to do that at this point, not target the Chinese market. We still have a good relationship with genetics. They do use some of our product, and we hope to undertake some further discussions with them in the next few months.
With the TGA likely to approve at-home testing, what's Antio's timeline for having an at-home test in the market, or is this something that you're not really focused on at the moment?
Well, no, we are focused on that. The reader innovation that I mentioned to you before is something that we're definitely focused on, and that is that segment, the at-home segment. Realistically, we've got some development work to do on that. You know, we're still early in the cycle, I think, for at-home testing, reader-based at-home testing. You're right, the market is moving towards that globally, and we're seeing that segment grow quite a bit in Europe. But the key market for us for that opportunity is the US market. We see Australia as, you know, a good market. It's on our list, obviously, but in terms of volume of opportunity, at-home testing in the US market is something that we see as very lucrative. So the combination of the reader innovation work that we're doing currently, plus our initiatives in the US, we would see as a potential large revenue stream in the next year or so.
So how does TGA approval change your ability to meet regulatory approvals in other markets?
Well, that's a good question. It does change the opportunity from profile a little bit. There are some markets like India, for example. India keep on changing their minds, as many countries do, about regulatory requirements for COVID-19 tests. They did originally not allow CE testing to CE mark tests to enter the country without a clinical trial. Then they changed their mind on that, and so we made an entry position when they did, and then they changed their mind again and took it away. What they have now said is that TGA is applicable for the Indian market. So if you do have TGA, you get an auto entry into the Indian market, and that's one market obviously is key to us that we see as an opportunity where TGA approval will help us. There are a couple of smaller markets, but on the whole, you know, TGAs for Australia, it does give us an optics or profile lift, but we still have to go through the regulatory process in each individual country, unfortunately.
So what happened to one of Antio's very first customers, the PNG Mine? Did they ever come back with repeat orders?
Yes, they did, and we're still fulfilling that client. The feedback that we got from them from the original order was very good, and they've ordered 2 or 3 times since that, and they're rolling that out in one of their mines. And we're expecting to get some feedback from how that's operating very, very shortly. The distributor that we have in PNG is actually teamed up with Abacus, and so that those 2 organisations are working together now. And part of the Papua New Guinea market requires a TGA approval, so that will obviously open up and we get it. But the mining market, we're growing organically in PNG, and that's been a success story for us.
Sorry, Derek, so with an increasing number of products out there with less than 15-minute testing turnaround time, is Antio looking into the possibility of shortening the testing time to stay competitive in the marketplace?
No, we aren't. 15 minutes is sort of the standard. We've got plenty of other differentiators for our test that I've mentioned that will take a market position. To shorten the time frame would mean significant re-engineering of the test, which we don't want to do at this stage. And so we're comfortable where we are with the differentiation position that we have.
Is there any supply agreement between ADO and Illume, and how are the renegotiations progressing?
Yeah, obviously there is. Yeah, we've had let me state, we've got a very strong relationship with Illume. We treat our relationship with Illume as key. I have a very strong relationship with Sean Parsons, and he and I have worked together in the last year, but not only on us supplying him AnteoBind, but him helping us out with our development as well. And so that relationship is very strong. The contract that we have in place for AnteoBind expires next month, and Sean and I have been in discussions about renewing that. So we're in advanced discussions on that front, and so we will conclude those discussions very, very shortly, and we will renew that contract. He needs to renew that contract. AnteoBind is a constituent part of their testing process, which they have FDA approved, and we've pledged to them that we will continue to supply AnteoBind as in the volumes they require.
What marketing strategy does AnteoTech currently have in place to promote the technology and accuracy of its rapid antigen test and EuGeni Reader platform, both nationally and internationally, given the increasing number of competitors in the market?
Well, the distribution network that we're creating is key. The selling of the test is really gets down to face-to-face at the end of the day. If you're standing in front of a clinician, telling them that you have a tool that is very good, that they usually want to see it and touch it and feel it and use it to make sure that it is good. And so the effort that we put behind our support of the distributors to do that is key, and we've invested quite heavily, obviously, to make that process work. In addition to that, we've pledged to the distributors in all their markets that we will advertise, when they want us to, and we will pay for that advertising and support them in that way. And we've done that in several markets that I mentioned to you. And initially, to get market traction and to to get our distribution process underway. We did do blanket advertising in Europe and the US, and that brought several distributors through the door. We can continue to do that. The next wave of European distributor relationships we will undertake initially via an advertising campaign, and that process has proven it will work in the past, and we believe it will work again.
But once TGA approval is received, and with perceived pressure on federal and state governments to adopt the use of rapid antigen tests, we've seen that quite a lot, being quite prevalent in recent news. What barriers, if any, do AnteoTech envisage will still hinder or delay sales of your rapid antigen tests and EuGeni Reader within Australia?
We've been working with Abacus without TGA approval to build up a pipeline. The pipeline is extensive. Abacus have worked tirelessly to get the EuGeni product known to the screening market, and I've got to say it's mainly the private enterprise screening market, and those relationships have been built, and we are ready to go. So we don't see any impediment at all to sales occurring as soon as we are able to. What will change is we'll be able to talk more openly about the EuGeni product in the market. Many people will know that the TGA have very strict rules and regulations around advertising or promoting a product that has not been listed on the ARTG. We are not allowed to advertise our product or talk about our product or promote our product in any way without ARTG approval. And so once we do have that, obviously our stance and positioning on our PR and our ability to talk about the product in the marketplace will change quite dramatically.
So what feedback are you getting from existing distributors that have signed up for a few months now in terms of sales and things like that?
Well, really good. You know, the feedback from the customers has been good. The sales that we've made, the customers that have used the product have been very, very good. They like the flexibility, they like the data. They want to extend the data capability into the patient management systems. We're working with customers on that now. The feedback has been great. The performance has been great. We've been able to demonstrate in trial and actual use of the product that a positive is a positive and a negative is a negative. And so, you know, the sensitivity numbers that we have advertised to the marketplace have come through in its actual use as well. So we're getting really good feedback on that front.
So just on the updated ISO 13485 certificate, can you just explain the significance of this upgrade and what's the next step or requirement that you're waiting for from the TGA?
We're putting documents into the TGA now. We have done, as we've stated overnight, their process is their process. We will wait to see what they need us to do. We've got extra information if they need it about the product and its performance. So we're governed by what their process is. We've asked them to expedite, and they said they probably will, or they will. And the timeframes are their timeframes, and we're not in control of it. In terms of ISO 13485 process, you know, we've put a significant effort into doing that. We had to anyway to become a medical device manufacturer. Our next step in that is MedSAP or MDSAP, which is the international standard for medical device certification. We have decided that we're going to start that process in December, and we believe that we can get MedSAP certification reasonably quickly. It is, I've got to say, a big effort again for the team to go through that process, but we're committed to it and we will start it soon. In terms of regulatory in general, the world is changing. Europe will go to IVDD next year, which is similar to the FDA processes, and so we will have to re-register EuGeni under IVDD within a time frame, and so we have a very long road in terms of continued regulatory processes that we must go through. But having MedSAP and ISO 13485 in place is going to put us in a good position to do that.
In regards to individual country regulatory approval, it's been 8 weeks since the UK agreement with Apicor. You appointed ProMed to gain registration of the test with MHRA. Are you expecting it to be gained in weeks or months?
We are expecting it to be gained. Again, this is a market where the regulatory processes are changing. The UK market is governed by the government procurement of SARS-CoV-2 tests, and so it's the DHSC that govern that process, and we've made applications to the DHSC in parallel to the MHRA. We believe that we will get MHRA approval very, very soon, and we want to get DHSC approval so that we can supply the UK government with the EuGeni platform as well. Now, one thing to note, only 2 organisations have actually made it through the DHSC process. They're both UK-based tests. None of the big players have made it through that process. There was a lineup of organisations wanting to do that process, but in recent days, we've received some positive feedback from the DHSC that we are on that list, and we will be entering a process with them. And we're very hopeful, given the performance ratings that we have, that we can get through and perhaps become number 3. So we'll keep the market informed on how we go with that.
Thanks, Derek. We're running short of time, but I just want to, we've got one more question on the life science, and then we might just quickly divert to the energy for a second. Final question on the life science. Can you just please explain the anode reference design again in plain English?
Sure. Anode reference design is basically an anode. We built an anode from scratch. You will know that, you know, our focus has been on the generation of active materials. We've done that with silicon composite, with microsilicon, silicon oxide, and using our AnteoCoat to enhance the performance of those materials. And we've also used AntioX to increase the electrochemical performance of the binder. And they're the really focus areas of what we produce and how we make the anode work better. What we've done in the process that I outlined with the collaborators is actually stitch all that together and build an anode ourselves. And that anode has turned out to be quite high performing. It does use the collaborators product. It does use AntioX as a constituent part, but the performance of that anode is quite impressive. And so that's captured the attention, as I mentioned, of the end customers that our collaborators have introduced us to, and we're looking at the opportunities around producing that anode. And so that's an exciting potential new arm of our development that's underway right now.
Thanks, Derek. To finish, we'll just we've had some questions through pertaining to the company's energy division, so we'll finish on those if we can. Considering the growing number of car manufacturers planning the release of electric cars powered by solid-state batteries, does your technology apply, or could it be applied to solid-state batteries? And if so, any of your collaborators doing or planning solid-state batteries?
Well, we see the solid-state battery market as the next evolution after silicon. So solid-state technology has a long way to go. It turns up in the press and in papers, etc., as a potential future technology, and certainly it is. But silicon is where the market is going to at the moment, and that's why we're focused on it. And we play a very important role in helping silicon work from a cycling stability perspective, and also, as I've mentioned, from a energy efficiency perspective. And so that's our current focus. Can we apply our technology and our know-how to a solid state? I think the answer to that is yes. Have we done it? No, we haven't done that yet. We're fully focused on silicon. We will look at solid state as a potential in the future, but at the moment we're focused on the silicon area.
Thanks, Derek. And just last question, since the announcement of AnteoTech being part of the Future Battery Industries Cooperative Research Centre to work on the Super Anode project, what benefits have been gained so far from participating in this project? And has this involvement impacted on your ability to progress other work, such as the submission of various regulatory approvals of your rapid antigen tests and EuGeni Reader, or any potential battery collaborations?
No, well, the answer to that last part of the question is no. We've got two dedicated teams, quite separate teams, one on energy and one on life sciences, and they don't mix. And so, you know, whatever we do on the energy side is not impinged on the life science side in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, they probably help each other more than anything. So that's that part of the question. In terms of the FBI CRC itself, I think we're still early days in that process. The early part of the project has been reference sampling all the different input elements to the anode and the anode design, and certainly our composite is part of that process, and we've been helping that process to get underway. The initial testing of the anode designs that they've put together using our composite have been encouraging. good actually, and certainly, you know, the reason we entered the FBI CRC is to make sure that we participate in a project that has the potential to produce a very high performing anode. And certainly at this stage, that looks like it's starting to happen. But again, as I mentioned, still fairly early days, and we will report on that progress as more solid results come in.
Fantastic, Derek. Well, look, that's all the time we have today. Thank you all for joining me. Again, we've had an outstanding turnout, which is really appreciated by myself and obviously the AnteoTech team. I'd also like to thank Derek for presenting and taking the time to answer some questions. As I mentioned, we were absolutely inundated today, so we tried to get through as many questions as time permitted. Now, as I mentioned before, recording the webinar will be on AnteoTech's website and social media platforms later today, probably in the next couple of hours, depending. So keep an eye out for that, and feel free to share that amongst your own networks as well. Derek, before I let you go, do you have any final comments to leave with us today?
No, just to send out a cheerio to all our long-term investors, and thank you for your emails of support, which we continue to get, and we know you, many of you have been in lockdown, and so we, on behalf of the team, we send you our best wishes, and we hope you and your families are well, and we hope that at some stage in the not too distant future we can see you again face to face and not have to do this process via webcam, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks very much, Derek. That wraps it up here. So thanks very much for all your attendance, everyone, and have a great day. All the best.
Thank you.